Okay, first update video since the demo, but actually there have been a dozen updates since then, so I'm happy to show the fruits of my and my programmer's labor. There will also be a couple moments where I ask for feedback from you guys, since I'm pretty split on a couple decisions. The standing jump can now be done during small steps. This wasn't an issue for Prince of Persia since small steps were a lock-in animation. It's not hard to stop stepping just to jump, but it feels like if you hit up at all, that's a more committal input which should take priority. Input priority is an art form, I'm realizing, since a lot of people find different ways to try and input the same actions. The single most common feedback I got was that the standing turn animation was too slow, so we shaved off some frames. I had already sped up most other animations, so this one ended up feeling a bit archaic. If you do the running turn, then cease all inputs, it now results in a stop rather than the running slowdown. It's not instant, but it's significantly faster. Considering the player is stationary during the turn, having to wind down momentum didn't really make much sense. In the original Prince of Persia, after a standing jump, you have quite a lot of recovery. Here's me jumping, then holding right. A real person can go quite easily from a jump to a run, so I wanted to have that in my game. This is how it looked in the demo. Most people didn't note it in their feedback, but 2 people noted it specifically because they thought it was a bug. It was intended, though I lacked a dedicated animation for it. I asked around a little among my friends for feedback, but I'd like to ask here too. I'm going to show 5 different amounts of recovery. Tell me which one looks the most natural. You can also do this running transition from jumping off a wall. It feels to me like this should have a bit more recovery, but maybe the same amount is more intuitive. Here's 4 more. Tell me which one looks the most natural. Here are the delays I have currently in my game. You can now turn around while crouching. I meant to add this before the demo, but I just forgot. Right now it's instant, but realistically this would be slower than turning while standing. I might come back to this once I have an animation for it. You can now only grab walls during the airborne frames of the running jump. In the demo, you could actually grab ledges after visually landing. Here's how it used to work in the demo, which naturally looked pretty strange. I expressed a lot of dissatisfaction over how slow the climbing animation is, but couldn't reconcile the fact that real-life scaling of a wall this tall would be similarly slow. I brought up the climbing speed to lots of people, but they all said it was fine. I was about to leave it as is, but I came up with an idea that made me really happy. As I've shown, I'm eventually going to have a mechanic where the player can run up walls. Right now it's already functionally in the game, though it's just a big jump visually. If you do this wall run on a small wall and hold up, you'll get an accelerated climbing animation. So it's like you can climb extra quickly if you have a running start. This makes sense physically to me, and I think it improves gameplay a bit too. Whether you can do this quick climb is based on your momentum. If you jump up a small wall, it works. But if you run up a tall wall, you get a regular climb. In Prince of Persia, the only way to climb a wall is like this. In my demo, the fastest way to climb a wall was to jump at it, then climb up. This looked really unnatural, and very unlike how a real-life person would move. Now the fastest way to climb up is like this, which I think is much better. When rolling, I previously had it so you could choose to grip the ledge or not based on whether the player held the button. Now they always grab the ledge, with one exception. I think this is better, since if you don't want to grab the ledge, you should just run off. There's now a unique animation for trying to climb a ledge where there's no room to climb. This is mostly for flavor, but it does make it clear that you're not intended to be able to climb up. In the demo, you'd grab ledges automatically when jumping at them, and it wasn't even mandatory to ever press the grip button. Because of this, a lot of people didn't figure out you could even hold the button to grip endlessly. I've made a sharp shift in the opposite direction. Not only do you now have to press the button to grip the ledge at all, you have to do it with a mildly precise timing, right as you meet the ledge. It's possible to input it slightly after you bonk into the ledge too, so there's a bit of leniency. But you can no longer just jump at the wall, or jump and mindlessly hold the button. This is actually now more strict than Prince of Persia, where you merely have to be holding the button at all to grip ledges, regardless of when you pressed it. In my game, you need to have just pressed it for the grip to work. Now for the big stuff. We've added loose bricks. You can run across them, but the bricks will fall shortly after the player stands on them. The player needs to jump over the holes created and can potentially climb down from them. I'll tie more mechanics to this eventually, but even adding the simplified version of the loose tiles from Prince of Persia introduced a ton of bugs we had to fix, some of which I'll show here. Also, the exception I mentioned. When rolling off a ledge that ends in a loose brick, you won't grab the ledge out of the roll. My final mechanic is something completely new, but it's something I've been planning since the beginning. There's now a button that summons a text box. I plan to use it to initiate dialogue when there's another NPC on the screen, but as of right now it's only my player character, so not much room for dialogue. If there is no NPC character present, I want this button to cause the player character to muse based on their surroundings or mull over recent events. For example, this button could be used to give instructions to the player on how to get through certain rooms. This would give hints to players who needed hints, but not stutter gameplay for people who didn't need hints. I also want to use it to deliver a little in-universe lore here and there. Originally, hitting the button when no dialogue was possible brought up a text box with just an ellipsis, but I immediately realized players would be spamming this button every screen checking for new monologue lines, and the text boxes would slow gameplay a lot. So now, hitting the button when there's no unique dialogue available simply does nothing. I further realized players would still be hitting the button every screen, so I added a new notification icon that lights up when dialogue is available. It's the exclamation point in the top left. Something similar to this will probably be in the final game. That's all the new stuff for now. Thanks for watching.